The little girl hadn't eaten in 7 days, and the next spoonful might decide her life. This was the fate of the only daughter. Inside the Vale mansion, where marble gleamed and hearts went cold, whispers filled the halls. No doctor could save her, no therapist could reach her, until a quiet woman with nothing but a song and a heartbeat walked through those doors. What everyone didn't know was that she would heal more than the child. She would teach the man who had everything that love, not money, is what truly saves. If you believe kindness can heal deeper wounds than money ever could, hit like and subscribe, because sometimes the smallest acts of care can change the grandest lives. The little girl hadn't eaten in 7 days, and the next spoonful might decide her life. That was the sentence whispered among the staff inside the Vale mansion, a house where silence had replaced laughter, and even the sunlight felt afraid to enter. From the outside, the mansion looked invincible. 3 stories of glass, marble, and power perched above the ocean. But inside, 10-year-old Elena Vale, the only daughter of billionaire Richard Vale, was withering away. She sat by her bedroom window that morning, staring at the waves below. Her nightgown hung loose around her small frame. The untouched tray of breakfast beside her had gone cold hours ago. When Dr. Mason entered, his voice was soft but grave. "She's lost more weight, Mr. Vale. If this continues..." Richard's eyes were red, sleepless. "You're her doctor. Do something." "I've done all I can," the man said. "Her body's fine. But her spirit..." "Don't lecture me about spirit," Richard cut in, jaw tight. "You think I built an empire by talking about spirit?" "Find what's wrong." The doctor looked down. "Sir, she's grieving. And grief doesn't heal with money." Richard didn't reply. He just turned towards the window, watching his daughter's reflection, pale, motionless, lost. By noon, the staff had gathered in the living room. Nervous whispers filled the air. "Another nanny quit?" one maid asked. "She said the child just stares through her," replied another. "Won't talk, won't eat." The housekeeper, Miss Carla, crossed her arms. "Mr. Vale's losing patience. He wants someone new by tomorrow, but no one dared volunteer. Not after seeing Elena's blank eyes." Hours later, Carla entered the study, holding a stack of resumes. "Sir, I've gone through everyone on the list. There's one last candidate. Former nurse, no elite background. Her name's Nora Williams." Richard barely looked up from his desk. "If she can make my daughter eat, I don't care if she's from Mars." Carla hesitated. "She doesn't look like our usual hires." He sighed. "At this point, I'll take anyone who still believes in miracles." The next morning, a car pulled into the long driveway. Out stepped Nora Williams, a tall black woman in a modest blue dress and simple shoes. Her presence wasn't commanding, but calming, the kind of stillness that made even the wind slow down to listen. Carla met her at the door, skeptical. "You'll find this household demanding." Nora smiled gently. "I've worked with children in hospitals, ma'am." "Demand doesn't scare me. Silence does." Carla frowned, unsure what she meant. When Nora was led upstairs, she didn't gawk at the chandeliers or portraits. Her eyes went straight to the little girl curled up near the window. "Hi there," she said softly. "You must be Elena." The girl didn't answer, didn't even glance at her. "That's all right," Nora said. "Sometimes it takes a few hellos before one sticks." She sat on the edge of the chair, not too close, not too far. Then she did something no one else had done. She stayed quiet. Minutes passed in silence. Then, faintly, Nora began humming. a low, tender tune, a lullaby called Hush, Little Sparrow. Elena's pencil stopped mid-doodle, her head tilted just slightly. "My mom used to sing that," she murmured, barely audible. Nora smiled, her eyes soft. She must have had good taste. My mama sang it too. Elena looked at her, curious for the first time. "How does it end?" "Depends," Nora said. "Sometimes it ends when the sparrow finds its song again." For the first time in months, the corner of Elena's mouth twitched upward. Not quite a smile, but close enough. That evening, Nora entered the kitchen, ignoring the chef's protests. "Mind if I try something simple?" "Simple?" the man scoffed. "Mr. Vale's daughter won't touch anything below 5 stars. Nora just nodded, cooking quietly. Rice, beans, and a touch of butter. The scent drifted upstairs, earthy and warm. When she carried the tray to Elena's room, the girl wrinkled her nose. "It smells funny." "It smells honest," Nora replied. "1 bite. If it's bad, I'll eat the rest myself." Elena hesitated, then lifted the spoon. The flavor was strange, not fancy, not rich, but it tasted alive. She took another bite, then another. Downstairs, Richard was pacing when he heard it, the faintest sound of a giggle. He froze. He hadn't heard that sound in months. He rushed to the stairs but stopped midway, listening. The laugh came again. Light, soft, real. He exhaled, almost disbelieving. "Who is this woman?" he whispered. Later that night, Nora tucked Elena into bed. "Will you sing again?" the girl asked sleepily. Nora smiled. "Of course. But only if you promise to dream of sparrows." Elena nodded. "I'll try." As Nora hummed, Richard stood silently in the hallway, watching. The song filled the empty mansion like sunlight through glass. And for the first time in months, the billionaire's fortress didn't feel like a prison. It felt human. The next morning, sunlight spilled into Elena's room for the first time in months, and this time, she didn't turn away from it. Nora stood by the window, opening the curtains gently. "Looks like the sun remembered your name today," she said with a smile. Elena blinked, her voice small. "I forgot what mornings felt like." "That's all right," Nora said. "We can start over." Downstairs, Richard watched the nanny on the security feed, not to spy, but because he couldn't understand her. She wasn't doing anything special. No tricks, no games, no strict diets. She just sat beside his daughter, humming that same lullaby. Yet somehow, Elena ate again, slept again, laughed again. At lunch, Nora found Elena sitting at the piano in the corner of the living room, untouched since her mother's death. The girl pressed a few keys, uncertain. "I don't remember the songs she used to play." "That's okay," Nora said. "You don't have to remember. You just have to feel." She hummed, "Hush, Little Sparrow" again, softly. Elena found the notes on the piano, her small fingers following the rhythm. A sound filled the house, fragile at first, but beautiful. From the hallway, Richard froze mid-step. His throat tightened. That was the song his late wife used to hum every night before bed. He walked closer, but didn't interrupt. He just watched, as the nanny and his daughter created something his money could never buy. Peace. Later that afternoon, Elena followed Nora to the kitchen. "Can I help?" she asked shyly. Nora smiled. "You can stir. But no spilling. That's an official rule." Elena giggled, stirring the pot with exaggerated seriousness. "What are we making?" "Chicken soup," Nora said. "The kind that fixes heavy hearts." Does it really work? Nora paused. It did once, for someone I loved. Elena tilted her head. Who? For a moment, Nora's smile wavered. My daughter, she said quietly. She was about your age. Elena stopped stirring. Where is she? Nora didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, her eyes distant. She's with the sparrows now. There was silence, not heavy, just gentle. Elena didn't ask more. She didn't need to. By evening, they were sitting on the garden steps, bowls in their laps. Elena slurped her soup, eyes wide. This tastes happy. That's because you made it, Nora said. When we create something, it feeds more than our stomachs. Elena grinned, cheeks full. You sound like a teacher. I used to be one, in a children's hospital, Nora replied. But sometimes, the smallest lessons can't be taught. They have to be felt. Elena's eyes softened. You're different from the others. Nora smiled faintly. Different can be good. That night, as Elena slept, Richard finally approached the nanny's quarters. Nora opened the door, surprised. Mr. Vale? He hesitated, unsure how to begin. I wanted to thank you. She's eating, smiling. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm not doing much, sir, Nora said softly. I'm just listening. He frowned. Listening? To what she's not saying, she replied. Her body's fine, but her heart's been starving. You can't heal that with doctors or tutors. Richard's eyes dropped. For once, he didn't argue. I tried giving her everything. Nora nodded gently. Then maybe it's time to give her something money can't buy. The next morning, Richard woke to the sound of music drifting through the halls. He followed it to the garden, and there, under the rising sun, was his daughter playing piano while Nora sang beside her. Her voice was soft, soulful, and heartbreakingly real. Hush, little sparrow, don't you cry tonight. The wind will guide your wings toward light. When the dawn breaks, you'll find your way. For love will never fade away. The song echoed through the courtyard like a prayer. Elena looked up at her father, smiling shyly. Daddy, I played it right this time. Richard's throat tightened. He knelt beside her, eyes glistening. You did, sweetheart. He glanced at Nora, his expression unreadable, gratitude mixed with curiosity. There was something about that song, something deeper he couldn't place. But before he could ask, Nora stood. Breakfast is ready, sir, she said simply, walking back inside. He watched her go, his mind replaying the melody, the same lullaby his late wife used to hum. How does she know that song? He whispered. Later, alone in her room, Nora opened a small locket from her pocket. Inside was a faded photo, a little girl with braids, smiling under the sun. She ran her thumb over the picture, tears brimming. Sleep well, my sparrow, she whispered. I kept my promise. Outside, the ocean breeze carried the sound of Elena's laughter. Soft, pure, alive. And for the first time in years, the Vale mansion felt like a home again. Carla's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she entered the mansion the next morning, her expression tight with forced warmth. Good morning, Mr. Vale, she said, flashing a practiced smile. I just came to check in on our patient. Richard looked up from his coffee. Elena's not a patient anymore. She's better. Better? Carla repeated. After 1 week? She gave a polite laugh. That's remarkable. Her eyes darted toward the garden where Elena and Nora were sitting cross-legged in the grass, giggling over a drawing. Carla's smile faded. "That woman," she muttered under her breath. Outside, Nora held up a crayon sketch. "You made the flowers too small," Elena teased. Nora chuckled. "And you made the sun too big." "That's because I want it to stay longer," the girl said. Nora looked at her, such innocent hope in her voice. "Then let's make 2 suns," she whispered. "One for you, one for the world." From the window, Carla's jaw tightened. "She's getting too close," she murmured. Later that afternoon, Richard was in his office when Carla walked in uninvited. "I've been reviewing her file," she began. "This Nora Williams, there's almost nothing on her background. No references, no permanent address. Doesn't that strike you as odd?" Richard frowned. "She was recommended by a retired doctor, I trust." "Still," Carla pressed, "someone like that doesn't just appear. We have to be careful. You have no idea who she really is." He sighed. "Carla, she's done more for my daughter in a week than a dozen specialists in a year." Carla crossed her arms. "Or maybe she's pretending to help for another reason." Richard's patience cracked. "That's enough. I won't have you insulting her." Carla bit her lip, trying to mask her jealousy. "You're letting her manipulate you." But before he could reply, Elena ran in, waving a sheet of paper. "Daddy, look," Nora said. "I can sing now." Carla froze. "Sing?" Elena nodded, eyes bright. "She taught me one of Mommy's songs." Richard's eyes widened. "Your mother's song?" Elena nodded eagerly and began to hum. The same melody filled the room. "Hush, little sparrow." Carla's face drained of color. "How does she know that?" Richard looked through the window where Nora stood smiling softly, unaware of the storm brewing inside. If this moment moved you, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more stories where hearts change faster than fortunes ever could. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that deserve to be heard. That night, after Elena was asleep, Richard found Nora in the garden. The wind brushed through the trees as he approached. "She knows that song," he said quietly. Nora didn't turn. "Yes, sir." "How?" Nora hesitated. "Because it's mine." He frowned. "Yours?" She turned finally, eyes glistening. "I wrote it. Years ago. For my daughter." Richard froze. "Your daughter?" "She was sick," Nora said softly. "The hospital didn't have what she needed. I worked every shift, sang that song to her every night. She swallowed hard. When she passed, I promised I'd keep singing, to any child who still needed to hear it." The silence between them was heavy, filled with understanding and grief that didn't need translation. Richard spoke gently. "You could have told me." Nora looked down. "You wouldn't have hired me if you knew. No one does when they find out who I used to be." "Who were you?" She sighed. "A nurse. A mother. And for a long time, a broken one." Her voice trembled, but her gaze stayed steady. "When I saw Elena's picture in the ad, I saw my own child again. The same eyes, the same sadness. I just wanted to help." Richard's throat tightened. "You did more than help. You gave her back her life." Nora smiled faintly. "She gave me mine." Inside, Carla was standing near the hallway, having heard every word. Her expression twisted. Part guilt, part fury. She walked away quietly, but her mind was already working. The next morning, Nora arrived to find her suitcase at the door. Richard looked devastated. "Carla called the agency," he said. "She told them you falsified your documents. They're recalling you." Elena's face crumpled. "No! Daddy, she didn't do anything wrong." Nora knelt down, holding her close. "It's okay, sweetheart. Remember what I told you?" Elena sobbed. "That goodbyes aren't forever." "That's right." Richard's jaw clenched as he glared at Carla. "You went too far." "She's not qualified," Carla snapped. "And if anything happens, it's your reputation on the line." Nora stood quietly, her eyes calm even as her heart broke. Before leaving, she turned to Richard. "Thank you for trusting me, sir. And thank you for letting me meet her." Then she looked at Elena. "Keep singing, my little sparrow. Promise me that." Elena clung to her. "I promise." And just like that, Nora walked out the door, her figure fading into the sunlight, her song lingering in the halls. That evening, Elena refused to eat, refused to speak. She sat by the window, waiting. Richard stood helpless, watching his daughter's fragile hope begin to fade again. But in the distance, faint like a whisper carried by the wind, the sound of "Hush, little sparrow" drifted through the night. Elena's eyes widened. "She's still here," she whispered. Richard looked out at the darkening sky, realizing something he hadn't before. Sometimes angels don't have wings. Sometimes they wear aprons and carry lullabies. The mansion grew quiet after Nora left. Too quiet. Elena no longer sang. Her laughter vanished like a song cut short. Even the morning sun felt colder through the glass. At first, Richard thought it was just sadness, a child missing her friend. But within days, her color began to fade again. "Daddy, my tummy hurts," she whispered one morning. Her voice was thin, weak. He called the doctors. The best money could buy. They ran tests, spoke in terms he'd heard before. Anxiety, immune response, possible relapse. None of it made sense. "She was getting better," Richard said. "She was happy." Carla stood nearby, trying to sound reassuring. "We'll adjust her medication." Maybe the nanny's sudden departure triggered. He cut her off sharply. "Her name is Nora." Later that night, Richard sat in the dimly lit nursery. Elena slept fitfully, clutching the stuffed bear Nora had given her. Every few minutes, she whimpered. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion and guilt mixing in his chest. "I should have stopped it," he muttered. Then he noticed something. A folded piece of paper tucked under the bear's arm. He opened it carefully. Inside was a small drawing. 2 suns shining over a garden. Beneath it, in Nora's careful handwriting, "Whenever she feels cold, open the curtains. Let her see the light." It was simple. Too simple. But Richard obeyed. He pulled the curtains wide, letting the moonlight wash over her. For the first time in hours, Elena's breathing eased. The next morning, Richard made a decision. He grabbed his car keys and headed out, ignoring Carla's protests. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "To find the one person who actually helped my daughter." He didn't know where to start. The agency had already blacklisted Nora. Her file was gone. No address, no contact, just a name that seemed to disappear. Until he remembered something she'd said. "I sing to any child who still needs to hear it." He drove to the children's ward of the city hospital, and there, in a quiet corner room, he heard it, a voice singing "Hush, little sparrow." Nora sat by a hospital bed, holding a boy's hand. When she saw Richard, she froze. "She's getting worse," he said quietly. "Elena. She won't eat, won't talk. Please. She needs you." Nora hesitated, torn between duty and fear. "They won't let me come back." "Your assistant made sure of that." "I don't care about rules," he said, his voice breaking. "I just want my daughter to live." That night, Nora walked back into the Vale mansion, not as an employee, but as a mother who refused to watch another child fade away. Elena opened her eyes the moment she heard the humming. "Nora?" Nora smiled gently. "You promised to keep singing, remember?" Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks as Nora took her hand. For hours she sang, soft, steady, and filled with a kind of love that couldn't be bought. By morning, Elena's fever broke. When Richard saw his daughter smiling weakly again, he turned to Nora. "You did the impossible." She shook her head. "Love isn't impossible, sir. It's just inconvenient for the rich." He stared at her, at the woman who'd done what wealth never could. From that day forward, Nora didn't leave again. Not because of a contract, not because she was hired, but because she was family now. Morning sunlight slipped across the marble floor of the Vale mansion, spilling into the kitchen where soft laughter replaced months of silence. Elena sat at the counter, spooning oatmeal carefully while Nora hummed beside her, the same lullaby that once filled hospital rooms and lonely nights. "Eat slowly, sweetheart," Nora said gently. "Let your stomach rest." Elena smiled. "You sound like Daddy." Richard Vale looked up from his coffee, amusement flickering in his tired eyes. He hadn't heard that tone in years. Warmth, calm, home. His phone buzzed on the counter. Board meeting, 9 a.m. He turned it over, ignoring it. For once, business could wait. "Daddy," Elena said suddenly, "can Nora come to my piano recital?" "Of course," he replied. "She wouldn't miss it for the world." Elena clapped her hands, delighted. "We're a team now." Nora laughed, ruffling the girl's hair. "The best kind of team." Richard smiled faintly. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt whole again. But peace didn't sit well with everyone. Carla, his longtime assistant, stood just outside the doorway, jaw tight as she listened. The same woman who once commanded the household now watched her authority slip away. When Richard stepped into his office later, she was already there, tablet in hand, tone sharp. "Sir, about the press release," she began briskly. "I think we should highlight your upcoming merger. It'll distract from the rumors." "What rumors?" Richard asked evenly. She hesitated. "About the nanny, sir. Some outlets are—" He raised a hand. "Stop calling her the nanny. Her name is Nora Hayes." Carla blinked. "Richard, this isn't about names. Your company's image—" "My company's image means nothing if my daughter doesn't live to see it," he said firmly. "And Nora's the reason she's still here." Her voice hardened. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment." He met her stare. "No, for the first time, emotion is my judgment." Silence filled the room. And for the first time, Carla realized she'd lost control of the man she once managed like a schedule. By evening, her resignation letter was on his desk. 2 days later, the Vale Industries boardroom was packed. Cameras, executives, journalists, all waiting. The quarterly press conference was supposed to announce a new deal. Instead, Richard stepped to the podium without notes. He stood tall, suit crisp, eyes calm. "When I started this company," he began, I believed success meant control over money, time, even people. I was wrong. A quiet murmur swept the room. My daughter nearly died because I thought wealth could fix everything. It couldn't, but a woman walked into my home, a woman this world often overlooks, and gave us something I had forgotten existed. Kindness. Cameras clicked. Some executives shifted uncomfortably. "That woman's name is Nora Hayes," he continued. "She saved my daughter's life. And she reminded me that humanity is not a weakness, it's a strength." Reporters leaned forward. "Starting today, Vale Industries will launch the Elena Foundation, supporting caregivers and children facing medical crises. Its director will be Nora Hayes." Gasps, flashes, stunned silence. And behind all the shock, one simple truth. No one had ever seen Richard Vale this human before. At home, Nora nearly dropped the dish she was washing when the news aired. Elena came running into the kitchen, waving her tablet. "Nora! Daddy's on TV. He said your name." Nora stared at the screen, tears filling her eyes as Richard's speech played again. Elena wrapped her arms around her waist. "See? I told you Daddy likes you." Nora laughed softly. "Oh, baby, I didn't do it for that. I just wanted you to be okay." Elena looked up at her with pure sincerity. "You made me okay because you loved me." Weeks later, sunlight bathed the garden outside. Elena crouched beside Nora, planting purple flowers, her favorite. Richard joined them, rolling up his sleeves and kneeling in the dirt. "You two are terrible gardeners," he teased. Elena giggled. "You're worse, Daddy." He laughed, a deep, free sound that hadn't touched these walls in years. As they worked, Nora glanced up at him. "You're different now." He nodded slowly. "I used to think money made me powerful. But it just made me blind. You showed me what real strength looks like." She smiled. "Then keep learning, Mr. Vale. The world could use more men who see." He looked toward his daughter, who was now singing to her flowers. "I intend to." The camera of life pulled back, a billionaire, his daughter, and the woman who healed them both. Not through medicine, not through wealth, through love. If stories like this remind you that real strength isn't in power, but in compassion, hit like and subscribe, so you never miss the next story where kindness breaks walls and hearts finally see what pride once made them blind to.